Welcome to In Touch Crime Beat. I'm Officer Don with Fayette Commonwealth's Attorney Ray Larson.
Out of jail, okay? Don't mess up.
And those are the people, those repeat offenders, the ones that go to prison. And
I say we're the #1 rated radio show in the whole country.
From a concerned parent and citizen of Lexington. And she says that I assume it's a mother or father, but I wanted to express my frustrations and concerns, but claims that he or she is not politically connected, and the average Joe's voice of concern has no place to be heard. He or she. I'm going to say she. That sounded like the mother who wrote this. Some months back, she said, my 20-year-old son was cited for possession of marijuana. It was a tiny amount, she said, as the officer stated on the citation. This was his first citation for possession. He went to court and pled guilty to a misdemeanor, not knowing the consequences of what he was pleading to has totally screwed up my child's life. Having completed 3 years of college, he was applying for admission to dental school until this happened, because he now has this on his record and he will not be able to complete the application and has fallen into a deep suicidal depression over making such a stupid mistake. Since this has happened to my child, I've heard of 2 other cases where good kids, misguided by the culture we live in today, made poor decisions concerning pot and will suffer the rest of their lives for something that is not illegal in other states. One child lost a full college scholarship because he was cited for possession of a small amount of pot. I read where New York and Washington State are no longer even citing people who are caught with a tiny amount of pot, saying it's a waste of the court's time to deal with such a trivial matter. Now, and then she goes on and on. She blames my office for this.
Oh, because he pled guilty to a misdemeanor.
Well, the problem is it wasn't in our.
Yeah, it's not.
It's not in our office.
The Commonwealth's Attorney Office.
We only deal with felonies,
yeah.
and this was. But the point is, this kind of behavior has consequences,
Mm-hmm.
and to sit around and to blame me or the court system or anybody else for something that her son did is, I'm sorry about.
But you know, I don't agree with marijuana being something that should be ignored, first of all. But I will say this, she's right about one thing, talking about how the culture has misguided people. Today's culture has misguided folks, and it is confusing, especially to young people, because I promise you there's a percentage of young people that believe that marijuana is still legal. Or is legal now because of what they're seeing around the country. But here's one thing. Marijuana is not legal in any state. It's still against federal law, first of all. The federal law, the feds are just choosing not to enforce it. Secondly, in Kentucky it's illegal, and it's still enforced. And they need to do something with it, I would agree. I mean, they're either going to have to get off the pot here, or
So to speak.
Yeah, or do whatever they need to do, because
Poo-poo
it is
or get off
very
the pot,
confusing to some folks about the legalities of smoking pot. And we were talking about it's not funny, but it's almost funny to sit back and look at this cluster that they've created, and it's only just begun. Everything from the driving while high issue that we're dealing with,
Drug driving,
to people and their jobs. I mean, I got news for you. I would rather my dentist not be a pot smoker, or my doctor. I mean, so that's what she's saying about dental school here,
Mm-hmm.
that they take issue with that. And you're running into that with a lot of jobs. I mean, as an employer, if marijuana is legal in Denver, Colorado, now they're running into issues because the employers who need to drug test because people are driving, or people are handling dangerous machinery, or they're cops or pilots, whatever they are. Those people are singled out where they can't smoke pot, but other people can. It's just a cluster.
Well, that's just the beginning of it. Washington, my buddy from Walla Walla, Washington, which is in rural Washington State up in the Northeast, says that everybody in Washington except the great state of Seattle voted against the legalization of marijuana. Seattle, of course, has the most population, and they carried it. And here's what's going on. Producers in Washington, producers, processors, and retailers must pay the state 2.5% excise tax, making licensed weed considerably more expensive than black market or medical marijuana. No tax on medical marijuana. And so what I've read and what I've seen is that people are getting these medical marijuana cards, going in and buying it cheaper than their retail recreational marijuana stores. They're packaging it up, and then they're sending it out to places in other states outside of Colorado and outside of Washington, and making a ton of money. Now, here's what it says. Here's what one of these dopers said. You're gonna have to sell to people grams of pot for $25 a gram. He said you can get the best pot you've ever.
These guys walked up and killed this agent. Both of the suspects had been deported at least twice after entering the country illegally. So they had been here at least twice and deported and been arrested several times prior to this. And as I said, now the game seems to be, if you're a repeat offender, we're going to let you keep repeating until you do something so heinous that we have to put you in jail. That's where it's going to be. So now we go from these guys being illegal immigrants, illegals, to committing what they call petty crime, a couple of burglaries here and there, and being let out. And now they've killed a Border Patrol agent, and right in front of his family, and shot his dad too, by the way. The agent was fishing with his dad, and now, okay, well now we'll do something with it. Why do we have to keep learning that lesson over and over again? But that's what we are.
You know, there's a guy named James Reynolds who, along with two other guys, Johnny Georgetown and Ron L. Suter, who several years ago at the Holiday Inn North out on Newtown Road seriously assaulted a man named Junior Barnes, a 76-year-old man. He had worked there as the guy in charge of the maintenance at the Holiday Inn North for 40 years, had never missed a day's work. These three thugs went in there and were playing basketball on their indoor basketball court. And they asked him to leave, and they did. And on the way out, they just ripped down Christmas decorations. And Mr. Barnes followed them out into the parking lot and asked them to come back in and pick the stuff up. Well, they immediately knocked him down and began to kick him. I mean, just kick him and seriously assault him. Well, he died a couple of years later as a result of problems he had that resulted from that. These guys all pled guilty to assault first degree, which is a violent crime. They were juveniles at the time they did it. They went to juvenile custody. They came out. The judge is Judge Kim Bunnell. And Kim Bunnell probated them. That's it. They did their time as a juvenile and then let them out. Set certain conditions. Now, Johnny Georgetown turned out to be a pretty good kid. Ron L. Suter, don't know yet. I mean, we haven't had to prosecute him again, so I'm hopeful he's done all right. James Reynolds, a different story. He, of course, was the ringleader of the bunch, and she gave him all these conditions. Get a job. He never got a job. Do community service. Never did community service. Don't violate the law. Violated the law over and over. Do this. Never did it. Anger management. Never. He went for about half a session and left.
Got mad.
Well, now here's the deal. The probation and parole office tried 6 times to get his probation revoked. Judge Kim Bunnell didn't do it. In the meantime, he has 4 or 5 kids by several different women. And of course, somebody's having to pay for those folks. Who's paying for that? You and me. That's who. Finally, he gets picked up and pleads guilty to possession of heroin. You see? And then finally, I think it must be 6 years later, his probation is revoked. He's now in prison serving a 17-year sentence.
Yeah, but here's the deal. He is a drug offender, Ray Larson.
Mm-hmm.
And in 6 months, they'll put him on the list of people who's only in prison for a drug crime. That's how he'll be listed. And they'll go, look at this guy.
No,
he's young. No, that's what they'll do, because technically he's in prison as a result of that drug crime. That's how they work the numbers. When they give you all these numbers and say, well, these are all people that are there on drug crimes, the rest of the story, as Paul Harvey used to say, which you just gave, is never there. But the reality, this guy is someone who killed an elderly man, is who he is.
Well, ultimately it resulted
in
his death, the injuries he received.
He's not in prison just because he got caught with heroin. It's the combination of all the things that he did that put him there. But that they're not going to get that deep because it doesn't get the message out that they want to get when they're trying to get these people out.
I'm telling you, I tried and tried and tried to get his probation revoked. And for some reason, Judge Kim Bunnell wouldn't do it.
Well, I had to save this article while I was in New York. This was the push in the editorial.
Did you save it?
I'll have to try to.
The answer is no.
But this is the gist of it. Check this out. It was apparently they're moving on to the next phase of releasing the non-violent offenders up there.
Yeah.
Now they're saying that what about the violent offenders? Don't they deserve a second chance?
Oh,
That's the article I read in the New York Times, and I'm like, and it was an editorial, of course. Are you kidding me? Enough is never enough.
well, let me give you one that is really. I'm trying to keep from cussing on your show. So what happens is everybody, the anti-death penalty squad, that bunch, is opposed to the death penalty, and they say, look, just put them in prison for the rest of their life, because a death sentence, execution, is cruel and unusual punishment and violates the 8th Amendment of the Constitution, right? That's what they say. Look, don't do death. Life without parole is the answer. Well, let me tell you what the latest is. Life without parole, America's new death penalty. You see? They say, well, putting somebody in there in prison for the rest of their life for killing somebody is cruel and unusual punishment and violates the 8th Amendment of the United States Constitution. And so they say, look, that's really not life without parole. That's really life without hope. Give me a break.
Life without hope. Life without life. That might be better.
That's right.
Trademark that. We'll see you next week on